What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Draft Report. In today's video, I'm going to be grading every single first round pick as the Thursday night round one of the NFL draft just wrapped up. I just want to give a grade on the value and the fit for each team and how I feel they did on night one of the NFL draft. So we start with Caleb Williams, number one. Caleb, huge pick for the Bears, franchise-changing pick in my opinion. This is a guy who, at his peak, could be an MVP, but I think he comes in the league and has success from day one. I think I'm pretty confident that he is going to be an above-average quarterback at his floor, which is hard to say for most guys, but his ceiling is insane. You did what you needed to do. I'm very glad they didn't go down the Justin Fields route. Caleb Williams is a way, way, way better prospect than Justin Fields. And then you have the supporting cast. You went out and got Keenan Allen. You made a move later in this draft to help the offense more. I think Caleb Williams is set up to succeed in Chicago, and I see no reason why this isn't an A+ type pick. I just can't give it an A+ because you took the best player at number one. You did your job, but it's not that plus value. Number two, Jaden Daniels. I'm not the highest on Jaden Daniels. If you've watched any of my videos, I think he's obviously an insane rushing threat, and he throws a pretty accurate deep ball. But I think some of his college production, especially at LSU, gets boosted because he played with guys like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. And throwing slot fades to those guys is going to be very successful because they both have 4.3 speed. They both make contested catches at an insane rate. You don't have to be super accurate to put it in the basket to those guys. He is a dynamic rushing threat. Don't get me wrong. He's a guy that teams are going to have to game plan around. He's going to change how teams defend the Commanders, but I just don't think he provides that much as a passer. He's pretty bad under pressure. He doesn't target the middle of the field a ton. I didn't see him making a ton of NFL-level reads. It was a lot of hitches, a lot of goes, which, funnily enough, is what Cliff Kingsbury runs, a lot of hitches and goes. Very similar offense to what he ran at LSU, so maybe that's why the fit is better than a Drake Maye, but I just can't get behind taking a guy like Jaden Daniels over Drake Maye. He's older. He's worse under pressure. I think his accuracy probably goes to Daniels. He's obviously the better runner, but I think I'd almost go Maye when the play breaks down because Maye just has that ability to throw on the run better. I think he creates passing lanes with his legs more often, and I think Maye can sustain more hits. Maye's not afraid of contact, but he's smart at not taking a ton of hits, whereas Daniels will just run into tons of contact, and he's a small guy, so is he going to be able to sustain an 18-game or 17-game NFL season? I just don't know. He's more of a mid-first, late first-round guy for me. He's a lot Justin Fields-like to me, where he can be, a solid starting quarterback that has some fantasy production, but when it comes to real NFL play, I just don't think he's the passer that a guy like Lamar Jackson, who he gets a lot of comps to, is. I think he's closer to that Justin Fields level, and I'm not taking Justin Fields at 2 over a guy like Drake Maye. So we get to number 3, Drake Maye, A+, home run pick. And almost any other draft class, this dude's the number 1 pick. He has insane arm talent. He has good athleticism. He's great at throwing on the run and creating windows with his legs. When the play breaks down, he's a playmaker. He'll throw a touchdown left-handed. He'll throw it across his body, throw it off platform. He is the ideal quarterback for today's game. I get the accuracy is not great. I get the footwork is poor, but he's 21 years old. He's a young guy. He has a lot of room to develop. And you saw when you compare his situation to what Jaden Daniels was playing it with, it's not even close. Daniels was playing with 2 top 23 picks at receiver, a great offensive line with a bookend tackle that's going to be a top 5 pick in next year's class. Whereas Drake Maye is playing with this year, I don't think any of their guys are going to get drafted of his weapons. His line was not good at all. He was pressured all the time, and he didn't really have a ton of open receivers. He had to throw a lot of guys open, and he has that special arm talent that the best quarterbacks have. What is the constant between Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert? I guess Joe Burrow doesn't have that elite arm. Lamar maybe doesn't have that special arm, but I think for the most part, those elite quarterbacks are going to have that insane arm talent. They can zip it into any window. They can throw off any platform, and I think Maye is just that next playmaker. He plays a lot like Justin Herbert, and I think I see no reason why in the next his within his first contract he can provide Justin Herbert level value if he's developed right. I get he's not a surefire thing from day one. Maybe Daniels brings a little bit higher of a floor, but the ceiling is way higher with Drake Maye. And I just don't see how this isn't an A plus pick down in the future because I think you're getting a superstar quarterback and a true franchise guy. We get to number 4, another A plus pick, Marvin Harrison Jr. This is a guy that in a class without Caleb Williams would easily be the number 1 prospect on most boards. I get he's a receiver, so he's not going to go ahead of these quarterbacks, but Marvin Harrison is special. He has everything. He's the most well-rounded receiver in this class. There's really nothing he does bad. I mean, he had some concentration drops, but we know the hands are elite. He catches through contact well. He plays physical, but he's also pretty twitched up and quick in short areas. His route running is amazing, especially for a 6'4" outside receiver. I like the Devontae Adams comps, but he's even bigger than Devontae Adams, so he has even more potential to be better than Devontae Adams. I mean, I see no reason why this guy isn't a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level player very early on in his career, and I get you could have traded down, recouped capital, and maybe got Malik Neighbors or something like that, but it's just not worth it. You have a guy like this, you have who you think is your franchise quarterback in Kyler Murray, you got to get him help. You lost Marquise Brown, and you lost Rondale Moore, so you have to get that receiver, and you get one of maybe, if not the best wide receiver prospect we've seen in a long time. This guy has everything. His production stayed the same, going from C.J. Stroud to Kyle McCord, and that just speaks to the talent that this kid is. Amazing player, and he's going to be amazing from day one in the league. A-plus home run pick. You get the number 2 player in the class at number 4. Amazing. Number 5, Joe Alt, another guy who's a great pick, and he's number 5 on my big board. You get him at number 5, so good value. He's someone I'm very confident can be a bookend tackle. I get there's concern because you have Slater at left tackle. Alt played left tackle in college, but one of those guys could easily kick back to right. If that is Alt, you have a superstar right tackle. I think he's going to be good from day one. He has, all-pro potential like all these guys up here. He's a blue chip prospect. He has everything you're looking for. The only reason I don't have it as like an AA plus is just because I would have taken Malik Neighbors. I get it's not the Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh way to build outside in. They really want to be strong in the trenches, so I get that. But man, Malik Neighbors, especially when you lose Mike Williams and Keenan Allen the same offseason, you got to get that alpha receiver 1 for Justin Herbert. And you can't be rolling out there with Quinton Johnson as his number 1 option. I'm sure they're going to take, Roman Wilson or Keon Coleman or something like that early day 2. But man, passing on Malik Neighbors is going to be tough. But I think at the end of the day, when you look back at this draft, you might have 2 All-Pro guys in Joe Alt and Malik Neighbors, and it's not going to be like, oh, the Chargers made a huge mistake. Like, if you get an All-Pro level guy, which I think Joe Alt will be, you can't complain too much. And it's a position that they like, and it's a major position of value in the league. So not a terrible pick by any means. Number 6, Malik Neighbors. This is an A+. In any class without Marvin Harrison Jr., this guy's the number 1 receiver. He is super fast, super explosive. He is a explosive dynamo. He is a home run threat in every sense of the word, whether it's with the ball in his hands, whether it's route running, whether it's just running a streak vertically. I mean, you can't contain this dude. He is a playmaker. He's not the biggest guy, like his size profile is not great, so he's not necessarily like some ball-winning X, but he is that Justin Jefferson kind of CeeDee Lamb type where he might play in the slot a lot just because that's the easiest place to get production. That doesn't mean he's a worse receiver. I think whether it's on the slot, whether it's outside, he can be moved all around. He's that easy wide receiver 1, and the scary part is he hasn't even reached his potential. Like guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. are kind of capped out because there's not much he can improve on, right? But Malik Neighbors, he doesn't have some crazy nuance of their route tree. He still gets open so easily. I think if he can improve on that, I mean, I don't see how you stop this guy. I get there's some off-field concerns, but the talent's insane. He's number 4 on my big board. You get him at number 6. It's a major, major position of need. So A+ pick here for the Giants. J.C. Latham. This is someone I'm higher on than a lot of people. I see a lot of people kind of hating on this pick, but J.C. Latham is number 11 on my big board. So I like him, but it's kind of weird to take him here. I would have traded back because there is a lot of offensive line depth, whether it's Latham, Fautanu, Fashanu, Mims. Barton. There's just a lot of offensive line depth in this class. So I think recouping some draft capital and trading back would have been smart. And if you were going to pick at 7, it's just hard to pass on a guy like Odunze for J.C. Latham. I get you have Calvin Ridley now, and I get you have DeAndre Hopkins, but he's only going to be there for a year. Maybe you re-sign him, but Odunze is that special type of prospect, and a guy like Brian Callahan comes from Cincinnati. He sees what having T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, 2 alpha wide receiver ones, what having 2 of them in one offense can look like. And I think having Ridley, Hopkins, and Odunze, I know it's a lot, but the Bears later in the draft do the same thing. I think that would help Will Levis a lot. But I get their offensive line's terrible, and Latham is a dominant run blocker. He is so powerful. He's massive, but he also moves pretty well in space. I think he's a bookend right tackle. He's a franchise right tackle. But they've just invested a ton on offensive line lately, and I would have liked to see them go and get a playmaker. Number 8, Michael Penix, the shock of the draft. 1 through 7 went pretty chalk. I mean, I had that in my mock. So Michael Penix at 8. If you predicted this, you're insane. I just still can't get why. Like, what is the reasoning behind this? You bring in Kirk Cousins for $180 million for 4 years, so you clearly trust that Kirk is going to be good, right? And if you didn't trust that, why would you give him the money? Why would you give him 4 years? And then why are you drafting Michael Penix at 8? Like, maybe his value is this high. I heard rumors that teams are trying to trade up, but man, most of the analysts had him as like a late first, early second guy. You take him at 8 to be a backup quarterback for the next 2-3 years. He's already 24. So by the time he actually plays, assuming he sits behind Kirk, he's going to be like 27, 28. So what is the plan here? I just don't get it at all. It makes no sense to me. I'm not a big Michael Penix guy either. He was my QB6. You draft him at QB4 when you already have Kirk Cousins. And I think one of the big draws to Penix is that he's pretty pro-ready. Like, if I'm comparing him to McCarthy or Drake Maye, I probably would rather have Penix if I'm playing an NFL game tomorrow, right? But you take him as like a developmental Jordan Love type, and it just makes no sense to me. It clearly shows you have no trust in Kirk Cousins, so you already pissed him off too. He said it shocked him, and he kind of is mad at the team already. So it just makes no sense to me. You could have traded back. If you really liked Penix, I feel like you could have traded back a little bit. But passing on the talent you did, I guess Turner wasn't valued as high by NFL teams, but still getting that franchise edge rusher I think would be more important than a backup quarterback. Like, what's the plan for Penix? I just don't get it at all. He was number 41 on my big board. You took him at 8, and my big board factors in positional value. So I just am so shocked by this pick. I still can't wrap my head around it. It's insane. It was insane when it happened. It's still insane now. It just makes no sense. There's no rational reasoning to do this. And like, if it was McCarthy, it would make a little sense because he's kind of the developmental raw guy in that mold of a Jordan Love. But Penix is old, and you're having him sit for a couple years. Like, I don't know what they're doing. Maybe it works out, but I just don't see what the plan is here at all. So not a fan of this pick. An F. Terrible pick, in my opinion. Number 9, Odunze, A+. Can't really picture a better draft for the Bears. You get your franchise quarterback, and you get a blue-chip wide receiver prospect at number 9 in the draft. This was number 6 on my big board. Odunze is smooth and controlled as a route runner. He doesn't bring the explosiveness that Malik Neighbors does, but he's kind of like if Marvin Harrison Jr. was like 90% at everything, but I think his hands are actually even better than Marv's. He's a good route runner. He's smooth. He's decent after the catch. He catches everything. So Odunze is a guy I know is going to be very good in the NFL, and he might be their wide receiver 3 his rookie year. That is insane. Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Odunze with a decent offensive line. That is insane. That if Caleb Williams doesn't succeed, it's all on him. I mean, he has no excuses at this point. His weapons are as good as any rookie quarterback's ever had. So it's going to be insane what the Bears are able to do. And if Caleb hits his ceiling, this team is going to be scary for a long time. We get to number 10. This was kind of weird that the Vikings traded up 1 pick, and I guess you needed a quarterback, so giving up 129 and 157 for 203. I mean, it's not that big a deal, but it is weird because they we'll see later they made another trade. They have like no future draft capital. They have like no picks left in this draft, and they have no picks next year. So I don't really get why trading up one spot, but maybe there was the Jets were telling them, oh, the Broncos are looking to trade up, the Raiders. There's probably teams calling the Jets, and they just had to outbid them. They needed a quarterback. They had to get their guy, and I'm sure they valued McCarthy over Nix. So, not a terrible pick, but I'm not a big McCarthy guy. He's more of a like mid first, late first guy to me. He was number 32 on my big board. I'm just not sold on him. He has a decent arm, but the reason he gets so much velocity is because of this big windup he has. His mechanics are a little off. I don't think his accuracy is pretty bad, especially outside the numbers, but he's willing to throw over the middle of the field, which I really like. He's more of an athlete than a lot of people give him credit for. He's really like quick and elusive in short areas. He throws on the run pretty well, but I just don't think he has that superstar upside that a lot of people see. And he also is raw and inexperienced, and he wasn't trusted to go out and throw a ton for a national championship team. So I just don't think he's worth it at 10, so that's why I get a C minus. But I get they needed a quarterback, and I think McCarthy, he's destined to succeed because of the situation around him. Kevin O'Connell calling the plays with Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, a good O-line. Darisaw is that bookend tackle. I think any quarterback that landed in Minnesota was going to look a lot better than maybe they actually were, but can't ask for a better situation if you're McCarthy. So really not a huge fan of that pick, but it's not terrible either. Just right around average, C minus. I really like this pick. The Jets, they recoup draft capital and take who they would have taken at 10. So that boosted up a little bit. Fashanu was my offensive tackle 3. He was right around here on my big board. I think he was 12 or 13, something like that. Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith are probably going to start year 1, but how long are they going to be there? They both are on 1-year deals. They're probably gone after 1 year. So you teach Olu how to be a little bit more of an NFL level run blocker, and you could have a star left tackle in the future. So I like that pick. I would have taken Bowers. That's the only reason it's not an A+, because I just would have taken Bowers here. I get that the positional value of a left tackle is higher than that of a tight end, but getting Aaron Rodgers, a playmaker like Brock Bowers, could just do wonders for this offense. And how long is Rodgers going to be there? Is Fashanu really going to contribute to the years you have Rodgers? I don't know if he will, compared to Bowers, who would be an all-pro level guy year 1. But I get it's a tight end, and they don't value that a ton. But I really like that they recoup draft capital. They got number 129, 157, and they take the guy they would have taken at 10. So good pick there. 12, Bo Nix to the Broncos. As you know, this is my team. And Nix is someone, he's actually QB4, and I didn't change this because I'm a Broncos fan. He was my QB4 going into the draft. I liked McCarthy, Nix, Daniels, Penix. They're all kind of in the same group to me. Like Williams and Maye are like the true franchise guys, and all the other 4 are like solid starters, maybe backups. Like none of them really flashed as like elite options. They're all kind of late first guys, early second guys to me. But Nix was my second favorite of the group after Jaden Daniels. And Nix is someone who I think is a seamless fit into Sean Payton's offense. Payton did not like how Russell Wilson took sacks. He didn't like how he turned the ball over. And those are the 2 things Nix excels at. He doesn't take sacks, he doesn't turn the ball over, and he's accurate. He might not have the elite arm. He's maybe not an elite athlete, but I think he gets a little underrated in those aspects. I think he has a better arm than a guy like Jaden Daniels, and I think he's more athletic than people give him credit for. You watch the Auburn film, and he was pretty bad there, but he showed more of that gunslinging, improvising mentality compared to when he was at Oregon. There was a lot of short throws. It's really hard to tell what he's going to be because his offense at Oregon was so spread out and a lot of screen passes and stuff. But I think he gets a lot of hate, but I don't like the value at 12. He was number 30 on my big board, but you get QB4 to me at QB6. You didn't have to trade up. So it's not terrible. I don't see Nix being a bust because he is so safe and he fits Sean Payton's offense so well. But I just don't see any superstar upside like I would want if I'm taking a quarterback at 12, but it's not terrible. So C plus for me. I would love to see a trade down, but you don't trade down if you have a quarterback you like. So I think he's such a great fit for Sean Payton's offense that I think he'll end up looking better than maybe he actually is in the league. And the Broncos just need stability at that quarterback position, and I think they get that in Nix. So not, I wanted them to take Bowers, but Nix is not a terrible pick in my opinion. 13 Brock Bowers. This is a home run pick. The only reason it's not an A plus is because I just don't think the Raiders needed him. Like it's a weird fit because they took Michael Mayer last year, who maybe didn't have the eye popping production, but you saw late in the year he was coming into his own, and I think he's a top 10 tight end probably next year. And you took him early. You invested a lot of draft capital into him. But I think Brock Bowers, it's like the Kincaid-Knox situation last year where a lot of people were like, why were they taking Kincaid when they have Dawson Knox? They're different players. Mayer is more of that inline blocker, and Brock Bowers is more of a receiver. Like, you can line him up at H-back, fullback, inline, out wide if you want, in the slot. I mean, he could play all over. He's a elite offensive weapon, great hands, great route running, fast, big, contested catch specialist, great after the catch. Like, there's not much he's bad at. There's, some injury concern, I guess, and it's just the value of a tight end. But 13 Brock Bowers is amazing value. Just a little weird that the Raiders were the team to take him, but best player available is normally a pretty good strategy in the draft. So 14 Taliese Fuaga. I would have taken Troy Fautanu here if you were taking an offensive lineman. I really liked the fit of Fautanu for them, but it didn't end up happening that way. Fuaga is more of a guard to me, and they're clearly taking him to be a tackle, so that might make him look a little worse than he actually is. I think Fautanu is a little bit more of a projectable tackle to me, but I think both of them might end up playing guard. But either way, Fuaga is a mauler in the run game, absolute dominant run blocker. I just worry about his pocket range and his quickness when it comes to pass protecting, but he's a great player. He was 20 on my big board, and you get him at 14, but it's such a position of need that it bumps it up to being right around where the value is. I just don't think it's like anything amazing. So solid B pick, nothing to complain about if you're the Saints. 15 Laiatu Latu, love this pick. This is a guy I'm high on. He's number 10 on my big board, I believe, number 9 on my big board. Only reason it's not an A+, I'm splitting hairs, but I would have taken Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner is the better athlete. He has he has way longer arms. He's younger, and he doesn't have the injury concerns. I get Latu is far and away more refined, and I mean, you don't see pass rushers in college with this much skill. I mean, the way he goes from move to move so fluidly is insane. He has such a deep bag of pass rush moves. I do just worry about the athleticism, the power, the arm length, how it translates to the NFL level. Like, he's obviously not going to have as many pressures and as the insane production he had at UCLA, but I think he could still be a 10 sack guy his rookie year. And if I had to bet on Defensive Player of the Year, I would take Latu because he is so NFL ready. I just would have taken Turner because he has the higher upside to me, but Latu's not a bad pick at all. Byron Murphy, this is an A+ pick. This is another guy I'm super high on. Number 10 on my big board. Seahawks were a team that needed D-line. They need interior pressure. I get they have Uchenna Nwosu and Boye Mafe on the edge, so they're getting decent pressure, but those guys aren't like superstars. But Murphy is that freak of nature. He's not Aaron Donald, but he's kind of in that mold where he's just a freak athlete. He doesn't have the strength of Aaron Donald, but he has the quickness, and he is a guy that's going to force interior pressure from day one, but he holds up against the run because he's so flexible. He plays so low to the ground. I just love Byron Murphy, and you don't find guys that are this big that are that quick, but he also has good college production. It's not like it's some crazy project guy. He's going to contribute early on. Huge fan of Byron Murphy there. I thought he was going to go number 9 to the Bears, and you get him at 16, so great pick. 17 Dallas Turner. Just off value alone, this is an A+ pick. I just don't like the trade up if you're the Vikings. You already traded up for McCarthy, so you gave up, I believe is your 4th and your 6th or something. And then in this trade, you give up another pick and then 2 more next year when you already don't have a 2nd next year. So now you go into next year with a 1st, and then you don't pick until the 5th. And then this year you have McCarthy, Dallas Turner, and then I don't think you pick until the 5th or 6th round. They just don't have many draft picks the next 2 years, but you get a stud. Like I mentioned before, crazy athlete. He is ran a 4.39 40, gets off the ball extremely fast, pretty bendy at the top of his arcs, converts speed to power well. He has like a 6'11 wingspan. An arm length is huge for edge players. He can just get into players' frames. He's more powerful than he really should be because of that length. He holds up against the run a lot better than he should because of that length. And in a Brian Flores just get after it blitzing scheme, I think it's going to be awesome. But he's also a guy that can drop into coverage and be very good, which I think is the reason they traded up. They just saw Dallas Turner as such a fit, and who cares about day 3 picks if you have, Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett. And I'm not saying Dallas Turner is going to be that guy, but his ceiling is that elite pass rusher. He doesn't have many flaws that aren't fixable, and if he reaches his ceiling, it could be scary. He is then that tier 1 of pass rushers if he reaches his ceiling. So I think it's a good value. That's why it's an A-. I just don't love giving up that much draft capital because you just don't have picks the next couple of years, which is concerning. 18, Amarius Mims. I like this pick. He was number 16 on my big board. You need an offensive tackle. He was my offensive tackle 4. He goes 4th as offensive lineman. Not much to complain about here. I probably maybe would have taken Brian Thomas Jr. just because Higgins might leave, but either way, Mims is awesome. I just can't give it an A+ because it's not some like crazy value like Byron Murphy or something, but still a very big fan of this pick, and he is someone that if he didn't have the health concerns, I think would be an easy top 10 pick. 340 pounds, like 37-inch arms, that's something ridiculous. Huge hands, powerful, but he also can move. I mean, this dude has all the tools of a elite tackle. It's just, I heard someone compare it to Zion Williamson, where you have a guy that's that big and that explosive, like it's obviously he's going to get hurt a lot, and I just worry about Mims being able to stay on the field, but he is a freak of nature athlete. 19, Jared Verse. I think I had Verse as 18 on my big board. You get him at 19, solid value. But I just thought if you were targeting off a defensive line, I would have gone Johnny Newton because you did lose Aaron Donald. So getting more of that true interior threat might have been a little more helpful than getting an edge rusher, but they're pretty similar to me. I like Verse. It's just not some crazy value. You know what you're getting. You're getting a powerful guy that can hold up on all 3 downs. He's more explosive than you would think. He's just really stiff. I don't think he brings that bend or that speed. He has the speed off the line, but he just doesn't have that speed at the top of the arc that I love. But it's a good pick. B+, A range, nothing to complain about. Troy Fautanu, really wanted to give this one an A+, because I just love the fit. This is a guy, they were saying it on the broadcast, like lifelong Steelers fan. He was like crying when he went to the interview with them because he just loved the team so much. And I just know this guy is going to fight for Mike Tomlin, whether it's at guard, whether it's at tackle. This is a dominant run blocker, and you know that Mike Tomlin loves to just win with that kind of grimy, like just grind it out running style, and you put Fields in there. You're running read options with Fields and Najee, and you get Fautanu, who just moves like a tight end in space. Like, I can just imagine it already. Him as a polar, lead blocking for Justin Fields. Like, it's just going to be beautiful running football. And I think what's also great about him is he's so versatile. The Steelers have needs at tackle and at guard, and Fautanu, he could fill both those roles and be a Pro Bowler. There are some injury concerns, I guess, with his knee, and I don't love his power profile, but I think in a zone scheme that the Steelers like to run, get out and run, put this guy in space, he can be one of the best run blockers in the league, and the Steelers are a team that loves to run the football. So I wanted to give this an A+, but when Terran Arnold and Brian Thomas Jr. were there, it's hard to pass on those guys because they're just better players than Fautanu, but I love the fit. Wanted to give this one an A+. Chop Robinson, 21. He's such a Dolphins guy because he's so fast. The Dolphins just love speed. He was 29 on my big board, and I get you lost Christian Wilkins, and Phillips and Chubb are both hurt, but I just would have taken Johnny Newton here, and I think compared to the Rams one, this is more egregious of a miss on Johnny Newton. He slipped to 32, or passed out of the first round, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but Jerzon Newton is just, I know he's going to be good, whereas Chop, it's more of a developmental guy. How can Chop hold up against the run? I don't know. He might end up being just kind of a passing down piece, and at that, he can be elite because he converts speed to power pretty well for someone who's undersized, but he's also just a blur getting off the line. His bend is amazing. Like, he's that speed rusher. He doesn't have many moves, and he only had like 10 sacks his entire college career. But he was a first-round guy, late first, and you get him in the late first, so probably should have moved this up to like a B minus, C plus, but I think Newton would have been a lot better for them, especially day one, than Chop, and they're a team that's, competing for titles now. Uh, 22, Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo. I would have taken Terran Arnold here, but I get why they took Mitchell because I think he's a slightly better fit. Mitchell is awesome in zone coverage, awesome in off man. I don't really want him pressing, even though I don't think it's necessarily that he can't do it. It's just he has no experience doing it. But Quinyon Mitchell in a Vic Fangio cover 3 scheme is going to be awesome. Slay and Bradbury are aging, and they were pretty bad last year, and I think Quinyon is a guy that's going to come in year one and be very good. He's a great fit. I just would have taken Arnold or Wiggins just because they're better players, but I get the scheme fit, and A minus. Quinyon was like 19 on my big board, I think, or 20 on my big board, and you get him at 22, so good value. 23, Brian Thomas Jr. This was awesome GMing here by the Jaguars. They trade down from 17. They recoup 167 and then a third and a fourth next year, and they take someone who they probably would have taken at 17. Brian Thomas Jr. Was 14 on my big board. This guy is a freak athlete. He's like the Anthony Richardson of wide receivers. He's like 6'4", 210, and runs like a 4.33. I mean, how do you keep up with that? He can win at the catch point. He can win downfield. His route running is nowhere near an NFL level right now, but his floor is like the best field stretcher X receiver, in the league. Like, he's going to be good no matter what, but I think his ceiling is like all pro level because he's such a freak athlete. But he also comes with good production. He led the SEC in touchdown, or led the FBS in touchdowns this year. So Thomas is an awesome player. You recoup draft capital and still get someone that would have been good value at 17. So awesome draft trade and pick and everything for the Jags. Another great one, A+. I get they had to trade up to get this guy, but Terran Arnold, not only is he a great player, he is like made for Dan Campbell. This guy loves football. He is such a Dan Campbell guy. He's someone who would bite a kneecap, It seems like everything he does is football. He studies the game to a crazy level from everything I've heard. The interviews were awesome with this guy from what I heard. And I get you traded up. You had to give up a third-round pick, but you're not going to regret that in the future. Pairing him with Brian Branch in that secondary is going to be awesome. Whether he's playing inside, outside, he's awesome. He's good in man. He's good in zone. I mean, his technique needs a little work, but he's amazing against the run. He fights, and I think that's what Dan Campbell's going to love is that effort that he gives on every down. And he's just a playmaker. He seems to always be around the ball, but he's also good in coverage. Like, he's not your Trayvon Diggs that's making plays but also giving up touchdowns. Like, he's going to lock you down but also make plays. So Terran Arnold, just amazing player, amazing time to pounce and go up and get him, and he's a Dan Campbell guy. I love that pick. Maybe it shouldn't be an A+ because you had to trade up for it, but I'm such a fan. I think he was number 13 on my big board. You get him at 24. I think the best value of the entire draft. Number 25, Jordan Morgan. Not a huge fan of this pick. He was number 37 on my big board. He's solid. Like, I think he's going to be a low-end to average starter pretty early on in his career. He's good in pass protection, but I just question how he can handle power and if he's really going to be a great run blocker. And he's going to probably kick into guard because of the arm length. And if you're looking for a guard, I just think Graham Barton is a lot better. And I just don't get why they didn't take Graham Barton. I guess if they think Morgan can be a tackle, that's why. But just not a huge fan of this pick. He's more of a second-round guy to me, and you take him like not at the end of the first round. Like, pretty, 25th is a little high for Jordan Morgan, in my opinion. 26, Graham Barton. He goes right after that pick. Graham Barton, 24 on my big board. Bucks need interior offensive line. They announced him as a center, so that makes me think he's going to play center. But he played tackle in college, and I think he's going to either play guard or center in the league, and he's going to be great at both. He's a dominant run blocker. His grip strength is awesome, but he's also a great athlete. I do question how he handles power rushes, but when you put him at center, he doesn't really need to handle a ton of crazy bull rushes. He just needs to hold his own, and then as a run blocker, he's awesome. So really big fan of this pick. I just can't really give a a center A plus value, if that makes sense, but it's close to A plus for me. Darius Robinson B plus. He was 28 on my big board. You get him at 27. You need a defensive line. They're a 3-4 team. He fits perfectly as that 3-4 end, but he can move all around the line. He can be a stand-up rusher into one tech. He's a versatile chess piece. He's powerful. He's a great run defender. He's very similar to Jared Verse. He's just less explosive, and I think the gap between him and Verse is a lot lower, or a lot less than people think. So getting him at 27 is a very good pick. Xavier Worthy. I'm not a huge fan of the pick, but I do think it's kind of funny that they traded with the Bills because I just know there's going to be a playoff game where Xavier Worthy drops 200 yards on the Bills or a game-winning touchdown. It's going to be like, why did we trade this guy to them? Like, they had him sitting there. But if I'm the Chiefs, there's so many good wide receivers. I just don't think it's worth trading up for a guy like Worthy, who's like, he's 48 on my big board. He's fast, right? He's fast and he's a good route runner, but his hands aren't great. He's super small. I mean, 165 pounds is crazy small. He can't handle press at all. And you kind of just have to scheme him open. I get he's amazing with the ball in his hands. I'm not sold on him being like an alpha wide receiver one. I think he's more of like a gadgety guy, but his speed is crazy, and I'm sure they see the Tyreek Hill particles in him. But you already have Marquise Brown, so it's just kind of weird to have two like of the same guy in there. But as a Broncos fan, I know he's going to be awesome and kill the Broncos. So C minus. I'm just not a huge fan of the value, but for the Chiefs, I think it's better value than 48 for the Chiefs because they need a receiver so much, and I think Reed's going to know how to play with this guy. So I not terrible. Tyler Guyton here. He was 34 on my big board, so maybe a little bit of a reach, but you trade down, so you recoup a little draft capital, and you get a guy who has star all-pro level potential if he hits his ceiling. This guy he's super raw, super unrefined. I don't think he can play from day one. Maybe they stick him out there day one, but I doubt it. But if he, develops for a couple years, he could be a special talent. He could be your Tyron Smith replacement in a couple years. He's long, he's big, he's strong. He can move like a tight end. He just does not know how to play offensive tackle yet, and if he develops that, could be great. And the Cowboys seem to have a knack for developing offensive linemen, so could very well be a good pick in the future. One of my favorite picks, Nate Wiggins. This guy was 19 on my big board. The Ravens need corners. I get there was some concerns with him, like off the field. Apparently, he was like vaping during a interview or something like that. Which, if that's true, that's insane. But either way, I think this is just the most talented corner in the class. He's long, he's physical, but he's also got a good blend of movement skills. He's 6'1", but he's also super twitched up. You just don't see high-hipped guys like that be able to stick with anyone in man. He ran in the 4.2s and the 40. I get he lacks a little bit of play strength, but he already bulked up to like 185 at his pro day. So he has the speed, he has the size, he has the length, he has the movement skills to stick in man. His technique could be a little better, but his instincts in zone are good. His biggest problem is just defending the run, which he's terrible at right now. But a team like the Ravens can kind of mask that with a guy like Kyle Hamilton, So I really like that pick for the Ravens. 31, Ricky Pearsall. A lot of people were hating on this pick. I'm a fan of Pearsall. He was 33 on my big board. I would have taken Mitchell, and it's weird that they took a receiver. That makes me think that either Debo or Ayuk is gone because you wouldn't take a wide receiver 3 at 31, right? It just doesn't make sense in such a deep wide receiver class. But Pearsall's someone I like. He's kind of that oversized slot. He's like 6'1". He's really twitched up. He makes spectacular catches. His hands are super reliable, and he has long speed. He's explosive. I do worry about his ability to handle contact and press coverage, but I think he can be, if they do end up losing Ayuk or Debo, he can be a very good player for them, and I love him in a Shanahan scheme, kind of avoid press coverage. That could be very good for them. But I would have just taken out Adonai Mitchell because he's the more special prospect, so B- here. 32, Xavier Legette. This was really weird. Panthers were picking 33rd, and they give up 141. They basically moved down 60 spots later in the draft to move up one spot to get Legette. And I guess you're basically moving that up to get the fifth-year option, and maybe you thought the Bills were going to take Legette. But if they did take Legette, who cares? You still have A.D. Mitchell there. You still have Keon Coleman. You still have Ladd McConkey. it's not like Leggett was the last receiver there. He's number 44 on my big board. 5th-year breakout. Doesn't have a ton of route running chops, but I get it. He looks a lot like A.J. Brown or DK Metcalf. He's like this like ball of muscle that is impossible to bring down, but he also pairs that with insane long speed, insane verticality, crazy hands. So maybe I'm a little lower on Leggett than I should be. 5th-year breakouts worry me, and moving down 60 spots later in the draft is just weird to move up one spot here, but um, you know, I don't love the value of the player, and I don't love the trade a ton, but Legate's still a good player, and the Panthers need wide receivers, and I think this is the type of receiver they need. Like, Ladd McConkey's a great player. He's better than Leggett, in my opinion, but you kind of have that in Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen, whereas Legette's that ball-winning X, and he comes from Carolina, so maybe the hometown ties had something to do with this. I don't know, but not a terrible pick here. And then before we end, I just want to go with my best available players going into day 2. I don't get how some of these guys dropped. Like Jerson Newton, he was number 15 on my big board. Him and Byron Murphy are close to me. Like Newton is more ready from day 1. I guess, is this an injury thing like that we don't know about? I get he's not some crazy athlete, but he's still a very good athlete, and he is his hand moves are like that of Latu. Like, he just knows how to win. He's always making plays. Like, you would watch, even if you weren't watching Illinois, you would be watching, Michigan against Illinois. I don't know who they played. Whoever you were watching, you couldn't not notice Jerson Newton. He's just always making plays. And I don't see how a guy like that is not going in the first round unless there's some crazy injury thing that I don't know about. Cooper DeJean, this is someone that I understand why he doesn't go in the first, because it's hard to project his position. He's not going to stick at outside corner, I don't think, because he's just not twitchy enough in man-to-man. But as that kind of power big nickel type guy like Kyle Hamilton, I love his fit. If everything's in front of him, his instincts in zone are great. His run defense is great. So he's number 2. Kool-Aid McKinstry, high floor corner, doesn't have a ton of athletic ability. Like, he's just an average athlete, but he was shut down in college in the SEC. I think that warrants a first-round pick. Adonai Mitchell, this is definitely because of the effort concerns and maybe some off-field stuff. Like, just how much does he care about football? But on the field, when he's locked in, he's amazing. He looks like CeeDee Lamb running routes, and then he's also like 6'4". He's in that Brian Thomas mold of freak athletes, but he's a better route runner than Thomas. So he's a scary prospect. I don't know how he's slipping to day 2. Jackson Powers Johnson, he's a huge center, like 330 pounds at center, powerful, great run blocker. But I just think it's because he's a center with some injury concerns. Like, it makes sense why he didn't go round 1. Ladd McConkey reminds me a lot of Emmanuel Sanders. Quick, great route runner. Just knows how to get open. Reliable hands. And he also can play inside and out, versatility. Not the biggest guy. Not going to win at the catch point, but he has long speed. More long speed than your typical slot guy. Definitely worthy of an early day 2 pick. Max Melton. Super athletic corner, very far away from a technique standpoint, but one of the most athletic corners in this class. He's long, he's athletic, he's explosive, he's fast. He has everything going for him, except he just doesn't really know how to play cornerback at an NFL level. Keon Coleman, he's slow, but I think he's faster than he ran in the 40. He's a dominant ball winner. He catches everything at the catch point downfield. And then he just needs to work on the route running. His separation is poor. He reminds me a lot of N'Keal Harry, which is concerning, but I think he's still worthy of a early day 2 pick. Marshawn Nealand. This is someone in that Darius Robinson, Jared Verse kind of powerful bull rusher, but he is even more athletic than those guys, but he just doesn't have the production. He's coming from a MAC school where he didn't really have that many sacks, and his technique isn't that great. Chris Jenkins, this is a good athlete, long, physical run defender. He's going to hold up against the run from day 1. Not the greatest pass rusher as of now, but he's an athlete and he has good length, so I think eventually he'll turn into a good pass rusher. So he's number 10 on my board. So yeah, those are the best players going into day 2. That's all my rankings for the draft. Please let me know what you thought of what your team did in the draft, and I'll see you for more videos after the draft concludes. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up, and I'll see you in the next one.